Hello and welcome to Audionautic Deep Space Network, episode 67. This is our weekly music production, technology, and marketing podcast. Today we've got a special guest, Jason from SubmitHub, who will be talking about some best practices for submitting, what's upcoming from them, and answering some questions from our patrons. Then we've got some new gear to discuss and some promising marketing news from YouTube's partner program. My name is Sun Warper. With me today is Curtis and Eon Lake. We're skipping the pleasantries because we really want to get to Jason and talk about SubmitHub. Welcome, Jason. How are you?
Thanks. I'm quite relaxed. That was a really nice intro.
Oh, well, I'm happy to hear that. That's
Who
great.
made that? Who made that song?
Curtis and I. Yeah.
Nice.
Glad we did. Yeah. Thank you. Thanks.
That's specific.
It reminded me of Tycho. You guys know Tycho?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. Big influence of ours. But the first time when Curtis and I met, he was living in Vietnam and I'm in California. So we met on Instagram through hashtags of all things. And we started sharing some stems and just started making this song. And so we brought kind of our own like vibes to it and just put it together. So yeah.
It was nice. I liked it. Thanks for setting the mood. It's perfect for
we aim to try, you know. So what's up with you, Jason? How are you?
I'm fine, thank you. It's been a busy year, 6 months. I've rolled out a ton of features, and this is sort of my last little hurrah before I go on holiday for almost a month. I haven't been on holiday in too long, so I'm going to try. My wife has challenged me to sort of like disconnect.
Okay.
That's good. That's good.
Good.
Like, yeah, I know. Thanks. Real good.
Are you going anywhere in particular?
We're going to England to visit my mother-in-law. She's in Bournemouth. We're going to go to Portugal and meet up with my parents there.
Ooh,
and they're coming from California. It's like a midpoint. So it was, beachy, two different types of beach, right? You got the Bournemouth beach, and then you got the Portugal beach, which I've never been to, but I'm quite excited about. So
yeah.
It's quite exciting times.
Well, we're happy to have you here, Jason. Could you, for those who aren't familiar with SubmitHub, just give us a quick little rundown of what SubmitHub is, and then we'll get into some best practices and things like that.
Okay, here's my 2-minute contextual background historical overview. I started a music blog in 2007 called Indie Shuffle, and that was the right time, right place to begin a music blog. And I quickly became obsessed with growing it and getting traction and building out the company and the tech stack and all of that. And as music blogs hit their peak of popularity, we also became super duper in demand. And one of the side effects of that was that we were often getting 200 to 300 emails per day from musicians and publicists and record labels who wanted to pitch their songs to us and get coverage. And that became quite overwhelming. And then you had this sort of perfect storm of 2013, 2014 with Facebook changing their algorithms, YouTube search making videos more prominent, and Spotify launching in the States. And all of these combined to see sort of this dip in online display advertising, not just for music blogs, but for any type of blog, be it a sheep shearing blog or a knitting blog or a cake blog, whatever you ran. People were quickly realizing that display advertising was a really crappy way to make money. Crappy way to sell ads, and that Facebook and Google were way better. And what this meant was that blogs were having this existential crisis where we were losing followers, we were losing our revenue streams, we were having to get rid of our employees. A lot of blogs ended up sort of closing shop. And while all of this was happening, we were getting more and more emails than ever because the cat was sort of out of the bag that blogs are the way you get your coverage. So while we're all enjoying this sort of dip in our influence and ability to run a company, we were seeing this big uptick in the amount of people who were trying to get our attention, and the two just weren't really sitting well. So with Indie Shuffle, I decided I wanted to code a more streamlined way of handling the submissions that I was getting. So instead of waking up to 200 emails with a Dropbox link or an attached MP3 or an iTunes link, which I don't even have, I could get it all into a single nice stream that looked a little bit like SoundCloud, with a thumb up, which meant, hey, I'm going to blog it, or a thumb down, which meant I don't like it. So I got to coding. I used some of the skills I'd learned, running Indie Shuffle over the years, and I built this pretty basic form, and I called the website SubmitHub. And within a week or two, there were a couple hundred submissions already, because I was funneling them from my email. And so I started to reach out to other bloggers, and I said, hey, I've got this thing. It kind of works. Do you want to try it out? And very quickly, they all started to sign up because they were in similar situations where they were overwhelmed by submissions. Flash forward about 3 months, and I managed to wrap my head around a monetization model. And I didn't have to think about it too hard, because what would happen is that when I hit thumb down, you'd get an email notification saying, hey, Jason from Indie Shuffle listened to your song but didn't like it. And people would go, yeah, why? Why though? Tell me why.
Yeah.
Well, if you give me $1, I'll tell you. And they're like, yeah, I'll give you $1. Tell me. So, yeah, it pretty quickly took off. And so by February of 2016, this was about 4 months into it, the premium credits were launched. And the idea there is that you get a response within 48 hours, a minimum listen time of 20 seconds, and at least 10 words of feedback. And, well, yeah. Look, SubmitHub has left its imprint on the music industry in some ways. It's quite a controversial platform for many. You'll find a large number of frustrated artists out there who don't think it's very useful. And then you'll also find a large contingent of quite silent musicians, labels, and publicists who just have sort of built it into their daily routine as part of their promotion. So we can get into the ins and outs of it. It's definitely... I'll tell you, we tell artists that you kind of have to have tough skin and leave your ego at the door, because you're going to deal with a lot of rejection. And as the ones running SubmitHub, we often have to remind ourselves of the same thing, because 5 minutes on Twitter and I'm just like,
yeah, I mean, what's the approval rating? Isn't it like 6% or something? The average percentage?
I've got good news for you. So,
okay.
yeah. When we launched, it was hanging around 10%. Over the years, through better targeting and matching and incentivization of the curators, we've managed to move it up to, I think it's at 22% now.
That's great.
So
that's definitely an improvement. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And so that's an average. There are artists on there who are batting zero. They're coming out and well, how do we say batting zero for the Americans? They're getting a first ball duck for the British. I don't know.
Yeah, we're international, so you got to have the metaphors and sit in.
So there are artists who come on there and get nothing, and then there are others who are cruising at 60 or 70% approval rates. And the trick is to really not spread yourself too thin. So the ones who are hanging out at 60, 70, 80% approval rates are only targeting about 10 curators when they make their submission. And they're often going back to the same ones who have shared songs previously. So we can get into some of the tips and tricks and tactics, but I'll let you guide the...
Yeah, I know Curtis has the first question, but before we get into that, I just want to go to our chat real quick, because we've got a bit of a lively chat. Abby is there saying, sitting muted in a team meeting, maybe one headphone listening to us, one to the team. I don't know. That seems to be the running trend here with a lot of our
Maybe
patrons.
we are the team.
Maybe we are. Yeah. And then we've got Hydro Fighter. He says, hey, all, I'm kind of here, kind of not in a meeting. See, it's a running trend typically. Again, I think the 2 headphone, but I know this is going to be really good information. And then David also says, sounds like a good show schedule on the road driving. Drive safe, but we appreciate you being here, David.
I hope he's not driving.
Yeah, well, he might just be listening. I mean, you can listen to podcasts and drive. It's all right.
Yeah, but I mean, he wrote a comment. Anyway, sorry, David.
That's true. That's a good point.
Text to speech, no?
Yeah,
text to speech.
maybe he had Siri do it or something. And then Lars was saying, when you were talking about the percentages, I think I feel attacked. Yep.
Sorry,
but
Lars.
you know that I mean, we it's just the nature of the beast. I think with SubmitHub, like you said, 22% approval rating, but maybe with these tips we can help improve some of our general stats.
I think I can help you walk away feeling less rejected, and we can talk about some of the cool features that have been rolling out and the ways we're trying to improve this experience. Because I don't want people to talk shit about SubmitHub all day long. Just a little bit. A little bit's fine. But
some nice stuff would be probably nice too, right? I mean, we all have feelings, I think. Right?
Yeah.
Curtis, you want to start with the first question?
Well, yeah. I mean, hi, by the way. This kind of comes down to the notion that, okay, so the idea of like success in the vertical modes and on SubmitHub comes down to kind of where you place your submissions and where the people go, that kind of thing. So when it comes to submission, Jason, what are the fundamental practices that we need to know when we are submitting? What do we need to kind of bear in mind when we're making our selection, be they the free credits or be they premium credits?
Right. Okay. So I think there are 2 things to really focus on here, which is the what we call the genre match score, and the approval rates of the curators that you're contacting. And then there are a few other things that you can look at, but those two are really excellent starting points. So welcome to the SubmitHub special. Here we go. Okay, genre matching. And this is a very difficult one for artists and not an easy one to solve. It's definitely not something that AI has solved yet, but like, what genre is your song? And so it's one of the first questions that we'll ask you as you're submitting your song, and it's going to be sort of the defining success of your submission is whether you manage to target those curators correctly. So as you go through the upload process, you don't actually have to have that much ready or think too much about it, but we're going to ask you 3 questions that are kind of guide this genre selection. The one is just a straight up, what genre is your music? So there are 250 genres to choose from. Some people say that's not enough. Other people say that's too many. We add genres on demand. So once we've had 2 or 3 people request the same genre, and actually more importantly, once it shows up on the internet somewhere, if you can actually Google the genre and you find it, then we'll start to really consider it. So we started with 5 genres. Today we've got 250.
It's a big jump.
Choosing the right ones is not easy. And you can do a combination of genres as well. So to try and balance out the incorrect decisions that a lot of people make, in March, I think it was, I rolled out a similar artists feature. So the idea there is that you can, didn't we chat
Yeah, we
about
covered that. That's
right.
what started the whole introduction with you to get you here.
Yeah, so the similar artists is that second dimension of this genre matching. And the idea there is to round out possibly incorrect choices for the genre to sort of steer you back in the right direction. And what we can do there is, I think I've got something like 20 million data points that are sort of feeding this algorithm, and we'll try to line you up with curators who like the artists you've listed, but also similar artists. So I actually go through Spotify's API, and you can put in an artist and get 20 similar artists. Spotify will spit that out for you. And so once you put in your artists, I kind of do that layering. I go, okay, well, you said you like Taiko. We were talking about that. So what are 20 similar artists to Taiko? And then I actually take it a step deeper, and I go, okay, well, what are 20 artists that are similar to those 20 artists? And there's a lot of overlap there. So I filter it to only have the unique ones, and then I award the sort of point weighting system. It's a very complicated way of saying I'm trying to balance out your genre with the songs that you've selected and line you up with curators who have a similar sort of taste and profile based on their sharing history, their playlist, their blog posts, whatever. The third thing that I ask you about is your mood. So this could be upbeat, downbeat, sad, happy, chill, angry, whatever. There's about 10 different moods. So you answer these 3 questions, that feeds into your genre match score. And then when you land on the list of curators, you'll see that every curator has a genre match score between 1 and 10. So the advice I would typically give people is to focus on those who have a genre match of 8 out of 10 or higher. Sometimes you'll be in a super niche genre. Doom metal was one that we added pretty recently.
We always, we talk about doom metal, even though we're all electronic artists.
Yeah, and so it's funny because we added doom metal, and there was literally a Reddit post about 3 days ago talking about how terrible SubmitHub's doom metal selections are, and how, I only found 15 curators. And I'm like, really? Do you think everyone listens to doom metal? Anyway. There might only be 15, like it's a niche genre, right? So people aren't going to.
I mean, I love doom metal, but yeah. I don't know how many others. There's dozens of us.
There's a need.
There's a desire for the marketplace.
There's a need.
Fill the niche. So these things help you guide towards a genre match score. Anyone above 8 out of 10 is good, but you have some additional tools on SubmitHub that you can use, such as previewing their playlists. So next to each of the playlists that get listed alongside a curator, you'll see a bunch of interesting statistics. For example, how long songs are included, how many listeners they typically get. And you'll also see an easy play button that allows you to quickly flip through the songs in their playlist and get an idea if your definition of the genre actually matches the coverage that they're doing. So there's a lot of tools on SubmitHub that are at your fingertips. They can be a little overwhelming at times, but they're all there to help you try and guide that genre fit. Cool. So genre match is 1. If you're going to be lazy about it, just focus anyone over 8 out of 10 and don't even hit the play button, whatever. But it's quick and easy. Second thing is the approval rates. So a lot of people don't pay attention to this, but pretty simple. If you submit to a curator with a 3% approval rate, that means there's a 97% chance they're going to reject you. If you create an entire campaign that features curators who average below 5%, that means there's a 95% plus chance that you're going to walk away with nothing. So one of the things that is important to look at when you are selecting your curators is to make sure that you aren't necessarily going for those who are too picky, unless you've got a good reason. So one of my colleagues, Dylan, calls this his stock market approach. Like, you want to choose a bunch of safe stocks, people who have 20, 30, 40% approval rates, but then you might find some super duper awesome blog like Indie Shuffle, which is quite picky and has a 7% approval rate. And you're like, okay, I'll take the risk because the reward or payout is pretty good. And that reward we measure with this engagement score, which is also just shown right there along with everything. I mean, I don't know if I can present this, but
you are able to present, but if it's too much hassle, I think you should be able to. It's on the bottom, but don't worry about it if not.
I can. Let me just do it because it's so easy.
Yeah, sure. That'd be great.
Present, share screen, curators, bing, bang, boom, boom.
So I'm not the only one who narrates the movement as they go through things.
You have to. You have to. I'll approve that in 1 second, Jason. I have to add it to the stream. Let me just run through a couple of chats real quick. Global's in the chat. He says, "Heyo, welcome. Happy to have you here." And we also have Frequency Control Center. He is a little late, he says, but getting closer to the start. Yeah, we appreciate you having here. We have a question from him later, one of our patrons to you, Jason, but let's get back into it. So I'm adding this to the stream. Here we go.
There we are. Okay, so let's say I'm submitting a thing. These are the three things I ask you about your who's a doom metal artist? I don't know any doom metal.
Oh, there's so many different subgenres. I mean, I guess you could consider Bong Ripper a doom metal band.
Bong Ripper.
There they are.
Bong Ripper. And here's Weed Eater and Yob and Bongzilla and these the
maybe
names.
It's Stoner Doom, but you know what? We'll count it.
Church of Mystery. Okay, so I've chosen some similar artists, and I'm going to go through and choose my genres. Of course, I'm choosing doom metal because what else would I do? And this is definitely aggressive, epic, and dark. All right, cool. So what I did
stoner
there,
as one of the
stoner as a mood.
Yeah.
The next step here I didn't touch on is the feedback that you would ask for. Always choose specific and honest. Even if you hate receiving feedback, what it does is it forces the curators to actually spend time with your song and think about why they're making that decision. And you can completely ignore that decision if you want. I know a lot of artists don't enjoy that part of SubmitHub, but think about it differently. Instead of getting feedback from curators, you are forcing curators to think about your song. So there's a subtle difference here. You're not seeking feedback from them. You are forcing them to think about your song. So in this one, specific feedback's a good one. Blah, 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 blah. Here we are. We've got our 17 doom metal curators.
I do need to get in on this.
I told you it's pretty niche. I think we only added the genre about 2 weeks ago, but people did not rush to sign up. So yeah, I mean, I think we've got about 12 or 1,300 active curators and only 17 of them like this. But just getting right into this, this one's a great example. So we've got 3 scores here to look at: genre match, quality, and engagement. This genre match is driven by those 3 selections that we chose, which were the similar artists, the genres themselves, and the moods. So this is they really like doom metal, and they share it 41% of the time. So this is just a good example of someone that's a fairly safe bet. But let's say that you're not sure, you can go ahead and see where they share. So this is a Spotify playlister, which means that we've got a bunch of playlists we can see. They've shared doom metal specifically 19 times in the last 90 days to this playlist, which is called Stoner, Doom, and Sludge Metal. Probably pretty right. It averages 10 to 15 listeners per month, and they typically include a song for 6 months. So you would do the math here. You're going to get 60 to 90 listeners there. It doesn't sound like a lot, but what's important here, and this is a completely different topic we can talk about, but you can use hyper-targeted playlists to train Spotify's algorithm so that they know who to associate your music with. So those 60 to 90 listeners on this Stoner, Doom, and Sludge Metal playlist are probably hyper-focused on that genre. And if your song starts to get integrated into, I'm I was waiting for that cat to show up.
You've been hearing it, right?
Yeah. I also saw the sick ass jungle gym in the background. I was like, we're gonna see a cat at some point. So you can train Spotify's algorithm away, and that's a different subject. But for Stoner Doom and Sledge, this guy is a 10 out of 10 genre match. He approves 41% of the time. And if I'm not sure what it is, I can actually just hit that button, and it's gonna cycle through these songs with, I think they're 30-second samples from Spotify. So it's really quick and easy to sort of make sure that you are right there. I mean, that's kind of a no-brainer if I make this type of music.
Yeah.
As we go
Jason,
down,
real quick, the monthly listeners, that doesn't show the monthly stream average, right?
Yeah. So mixed bag there. At some point, I might bring it in because we now have much better data than we used to. So when we first rolled out Spotify playlists, okay, when we got time here, let's just get into the history.
When we get stretched beforehand, yeah.
Yeah. When we first started doing Spotify playlists in 2017, the only metric that Spotify really gave us that was useful was how many followers a playlist had. Today, I think it's common knowledge that the number of followers is not a good indicator of a playlist's health. It doesn't necessarily mean that the playlist is fake. The growth of those followers is usually a good way to identify something sketchy. But a lot of playlists have invested money into advertising and then stopped. And when they stop growing their playlists, the engagement dries up. Back in the day, playlists used to be featured by Spotify. Can you believe it? They actually featured independent playlists. This is in 2017. And so a lot of the playlisters actually built up a couple 100,000 followers over the course of a month or two because they were on Spotify's homepage. And then as soon as they got pulled off the homepage, it disappeared. So just because they don't have the listeners anymore and they have a ton of followers doesn't mean it's fake. Back in the day, followers was all we had to work with. We didn't even have the historical charts because we were just starting, so we couldn't track historically. And so there was a guy named Ari Herstand who's based out of LA, and he's got something called Ari's Take. Yeah. He ripped SubmitHub a new one. He was like, SubmitHub is basically facilitating connections with a bunch of scam playlists with a lack of information, and we're not doing our due diligence. And I was like, whoa, how am I supposed to? I didn't have the answer initially, and it wasn't intentional. It was in a way ignorance. I was signing these guys up. I didn't fully understand the ecosystem. No one else was really doing it at the time. I think the only other platform doing Spotify submissions was Playlist Push, which was fairly new on the scene at the time as well. So what I was able to do was use a service called Mechanical Turk. I don't know if you guys have heard of this.
No.
But it's an Amazon service that has existed for almost 2 decades. It's a bunch of micro tasks. So basically you put up a task on Mechanical Turk and a bunch of people will complete it for you. So autonomous driving would use it a lot as an example. Here's 5 pictures, identify the ones with a dog crossing the street or whatever. So it's human powered machine learning is the way that it gets used a lot. What I was able to use it for was to say, hey, here's an artist. Can you open that up and tell me what their discovered on section says? Because back in the day, Spotify's discovered section actually showed how many listeners each playlist had generated for that artist. It's all gone now because, of course, Spotify didn't want to include that because it was too useful. God knows why they got rid of it. Anyway, so they got rid of it. But for a couple of years, we were able to build up these profiles of listener numbers for each of the playlists by using Mechanical Turk to collect this data en masse. I wasn't as good of a coder as I am now. I could have just scraped it all automatically with some code, which is maybe what I do today. Who knows? So then they got rid of those numbers, and I went, oh shit. Okay, now what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask artists who are shared through SubmitHub to download or export their data from Spotify for Artists. So on Spotify for Artists, you can do a spreadsheet CSV export of your data. And so I did that. I coded a way for them to upload their spreadsheet, and then I used code to basically just parse that CSV and pump the data in. And so we were, for many years, the only website out there that had any sort of listener data for these playlists. Today, we're like leagues and steps and bounds above anyone else doing it. And the amount of data we have here is There's a lot. So this guy here that's showing,
Let me get back
where
to
do we
it.
go?
Hold on
10 to
one second.
15.
Here we go.
Bring it back. This 10 to 15 monthly listeners here is driven by data from artists who've been shared in there. So it's not just the 19, it's actually quite a few others in there. I'm not going to show you that stuff because it's actually meant to be anonymous. There's a button I have that no one else has, listener data. And when I click that, I can see all the data points driving this number here. But we've actually got really good coverage. We've teamed up with a couple of the distributors now, so we have access to all the data. Yeah. So it's kind of anonymous. They give us these endpoints where we can just like, hey, here's an artist. Tell me which playlist they're in. What we do, we say, hey, here's a playlist. Have you got any artists in this playlist and how many listeners did they get? And then they spit back anyway, it's kind of cool. No one else has that. Shh. But yeah, there's a ton of stats on each playlist. So you can actually go through and see sort of their daily growth, how many, how many followers they have or what the daily growth is like. And this goes back for, pretty much as long as the playlist will have existed. There's sometimes gaps in the data. So, these spikes, you gained quite a few followers in a day. Actually, that's not that big, 200 and something. But these are good things to look at when you're trying to identify the health of a playlist. We've got audio analysis. How consistent is this playlist? They love doom metal, stoner rock, and hard rock. The BPM, the energy. These are all things that are feeding into that genre match score when you put it up. And you can also just preview their playlists. So anyone can access that by clicking learn more. There's just a ton of data there, and it can be overwhelming at times. So again, you can just sort of trust this genre match score and skip all of it.
So you can kind of go as in depth as you want, or just as basic
Yeah.
or surface as
Yeah,
needed.
which is so Playlist Push will often say, the problem with SubmitHub is that you have to spend so much time sifting through curators and trying to identify who you're going to send to which I said, check out this choose for me button, which I coded at the end of last year, which was basically my response to being like, well, you can just let us choose for you. And then it doesn't take long at all. So some people actually just go through that, and it's got a couple steps in terms of, how you want to do. Again, we don't have many options because we're in such a niche genre. But yeah, that's the crash course really. I mean, so you're looking at the genre match score and this number right here, average approval rate. So You'll rarely find someone with a high genre match score and a low approval rate. It happens, but it's rare. Like this guy fucking loves doom metal. Basically won't say no to a doom metal song.
I don't blame him.
Some more, but is it you? You sure?
I wish.
Here's another one. So some of this is also sample size. If they've only received 2 or 3 and they approved all of them, then it's going to throw it off. But so that genre match and that approval rate, if you pay attention to those 2 things and you kind of get your genre match sort of kind of right, that's going to be able to get your approval rate probably above 20%. Obviously, a lot of it depends on the song itself. There aren't very many bad songs that go through SubmitHub. And I know we're going to have a question about how many songs. But yeah, they're really like the standard. I think a lot of artists underestimate how good the competition is, if you will. It's rare to encounter a song that sounds like it was recorded on a potato. Everyone can afford basic mixing, basic mastering, and it's so accessible on the internet that the odds of you getting that out there, not to mention that I think some of the distributors actually reject songs that are too low in quality. So yeah, the bar is pretty high these days, and the competition's pretty fierce. But if you're submitting a true doom metal song and you're targeting 6 or 7 of those curators we just saw, that odds are 3 or 4 of them are actually going to approve it. So one of the things with SubmitHub is to not go too big or too large. I know it's counterintuitive for me as a businessman to say this, but Groover always says artists who spend more money have better results. And it's like, well, no shit, kind of, but not as a percentage. And it just feels kind of shady, and they push that hard. And for me, it's actually, I would rather have you spend $5 but come back for every single than blow $100 up front and find that it was disappointing because you sort of you spread yourself too thin. So
that makes sense. And Jason, I think that brings up a good question that I wanted to ask you, because I was talking with some patrons yesterday, and there's actually some comments in the chat that are relevant to this and what we're talking about, all these different songs and sub-genres and things like that. Lars asks, I wonder if it's better for more experimental music now. And then Klismic also says, genre is no longer identifiable. There are subgenres of subgenres of subgenres. So my question is really, do you feel like there's a place for this kind of experimental music to be submitted on SubmitHub?
Okay, this is where I get to be honest, right?
I would hope the whole episode you're honest, but yeah, we'll take it whenever.
No, I just want to look. I mean, it's going to come off wrong, probably. Sometimes it feels like the artists who think that they are getting rejected for being too experimental are actually just making bad music, and they use that as an excuse. I think there's absolutely openness to experimental music, and a huge common complaint is that, you know, playlists are only looking for cookie cutter generic music. And I really don't think that's true. When you sit there listening to songs all day and they sound the same over and over, the ones that really stand out as interesting and different are the ones that are pushing some sort of direction within that genre that is experimental. But many of the artists out there who complain that there's not a space for experimental music, not all, there are, of course, people making like some weird ass Aphex Twin shit. That's fine. But in many cases, it's what they think is experimental. It's actually not that crazy experimental. It just sounds bad. That's my controversial take on it. I see it a lot where people's like, yeah, SubmitHub's only good for generic, safe music. And I don't think that's true. I really don't. There is a ton of commercial coverage on there and a lot of generic songs. You flip through the popular list and you'll probably find a lot of it is not to your liking. But that is a reflection of the general population. We just went into doom sludge metal and there are people sharing it. That's a pretty niche genre. It's not necessarily experimental, but yeah, I guess the reason that my take here is controversial is that I often find that when I go and I listen to those experimental songs, they're not experimental, they're just terrible. That's it. That's my take.
All right. I mean, that's what I wanted to hear from you, from the owner. Yeah, I mean, the one thing I will say, you mentioned like people are making weird Aphex Twin type music. I mean, I think our audience kind of is in that's kind of what I meant with the experimental music, like that IDM, like heavy IDM stuff.
Yeah. Okay, so there is an IDM section. I guess I don't consider. There's also an experimental electronic genre. So there's IDM and experimental electronic. So both of them are there and available. I think it just gets misused quite often. And I suppose that's why I started by saying the caveat, you know, well, there's the Aphex Twin stuff, and that's sort of what I consider experimental electronic. But a lot of people, when they complain about SubmitHub not liking experimental stuff, it's not electronic necessarily that they're doing. It's like, oh, I was doing this experimental folk music where I just, you know, sound bad. We used to have experimental as a genre. Just experimental, and we ended up getting rid of it because there's no consensus on what experimental even means, and it's not specific to a genre. So that's why we rolled out experimental electronic instead. And I think if you actually look at that, it probably does say Aphex Twin as a reference for artists that you should consider here. And then there's IDM, which is, you know, intelligent dance music, and you know, we've got whatever is in there, Boards of Canada or whoever, I don't know what. So that type of music has a home on SubmitHub, and there are curators who will cover it. I suppose I'm just getting off on the wrong foot here because I just feel like the complaint about experimental stuff is often misplaced.
Yeah, I probably should have also given the caveat of experimental electronic music, because experimental,
well,
like you say, it's a very wide
space for that.
Yeah. Okay, I got you.
Yeah. Well, I mean, this is where I thought that the changes that you made would sound like were really logical and well thought out, because I disagree a lot with label identification, genre identification. I mean, people don't always agree on how to verbally describe something, but, you know, if you can describe it sonically, that probably makes for a better match.
It helps. This is where AI, there's a lot of hope around it. I think I'm gonna run some experiments this year. So my friend is doing he's doing his PhD at Harvard. We make fun of him all the time because God knows how he got in, but he did it. He did it. He's doing a PhD at Harvard. They pay him to go to school, and they're all freaking out. They're statisticians, so AI and machine learning is they get it. They're not just looking at like the output; they're looking at the inputs and how to. Anyway, they really want to try solve this problem of genre matching and similar artists for me for free. So I'm curious to see how it will go. So like maybe this time next year, SubmitHub will be powered by Harvard PhDs, and if they can nail it, that's great. But I'm inherently skeptical because if we as people struggle so much to tag this, I just don't think. Is
it a bit of a holy grail then? You think?
No, I don't know. It's like I don't know if you've tried these websites where you can upload an MP3 or a WAV file, and then they try to tell you the genres of the song, and they're inherently generic. They'll be like, "This is electronic music." Like, well, fuck.
Great.
This has a guitar and drums. I'm like, all right, cool, yeah, but I mean, like, is it organic house or freak folk? Who are the similar artists? I had someone who was trying to tell me I should use AI for identifying genres. God bless him. I pointed out that, like, what about an unreleased song no one's ever heard of? And he was like, no, but look, I asked ChatGPT what genre is Nirvana, and they got it right. I was like, yeah, but did you ask them what your unreleased song sounds like? Anyway.
There is space. I mean, there's a lot of work being done here with AI and music detection here in the Czech Republic, and there are a couple of companies, a couple of startups mainly, who are working with them, and mainly in music, mainly in production music, mainly for like TV and film and stuff, where you can take, admittedly, yes, released music, not unreleased music, but the AI detection is growing, and with deep learning, it is getting there. It's early days, so to speak, but there is space for that kind of way forward, which, I mean, could help any budding producer, I feel.
It will get better. I could say that. It's definitely not there right now. I've debated rolling out a feature on SubmitHub where you can, I'll try to think it through out loud. Basically, let's say you could spend 1 credit and 5 curators will tell you what genre your song is within 2 minutes. That's kind of the feature I want. So like you're going through upload. Oh, what genre is this? Here, quickly, 1 credit, boom. And then it will show up on all the active curators, whoever's online right now, who wants to answer this, and you get your genres back. And then you actually get real people to tell you where they would categorize it. So
that's an interesting way to kind of burgeon some form of a community in that regard, where you've got people checking out for each other. That's quite nice.
Yeah, and I do think humans can do it better. So like Indie Shuffle's tagline is, what is it? Humans are better than robots at music curation. Okay. That's been our tagline since 2010. We've been on a slow decline in popularity since then. So wrong, but I'd like to think it's true. And yeah, so with this genre identification right now, I think AI will inevitably get there. I don't know what that's gonna. I don't know. Who knows? You guys probably actually have stronger opinions than me about the interference of AI in music creation, but.
Don't get Eon Lake started on that. That's a whole other episode for that. Yeah. But I think that is a good segue in before we get into some patron questions. Jason, do you have anything new on the horizon for SubmitHub that you'd care to share?
I'm going on holiday. Yeah, we so what I've been working on so hard this year, besides the occasional similar artist thing, we've let's see, 2 new things in the last month. There's some ChatGPT integration. I finally did figure out a way to integrate AI. I'm a little bit of a skeptic here, but I did it. But what it does is it, you know what? Visuals.
Is it share screen time again?
Words. Yeah, let me just pull it up. I'm going to try to look for something and talk at the same time, just because I'm going to show a song by our head of marketing, one of her songs, because I know she won't mind if I'm putting it on. And then you can see what I mean. Here we go. All right, share screen. Okay, so ChatGPT does one thing pretty well.
Hold on 1 second. It just popped up. It has a bit of latency. Here we go.
No, that's right. So ChatGPT does something pretty well. It can summarize text. You chuck a book in there and ask for one paragraph summary. It'll give it to you and do it fairly decently. So all the skepticism about music aside, one of the elements of SubmitHub that everyone has to deal with is feedback that you receive from people. So I thought one thing that could be pretty cool was to put your feedback through ChatGPT and kind of ask for a summary of it. So, in her case, she's received, I think, 30 or 40 responses, and you can go through and ChatGPT will come back with positive themes and reasons they didn't like it. So this is sort of a high-level summary that makes it easier to digest feedback without that sort of personal grammatical errors, whatever the individual feedback might have. And then I thought, okay, cool, let me take it a step further and do something else cool here, which is let's identify some of the positive quotes. So a lot of curators do this thing called a compliment sandwich. So they'll start out with something positive, then let you down and finish with a word of encouragement. It's sometimes frustrating for artists. Like, well, if you like the song so much, why didn't you share it? But one thing you can do with that is you can ask ChatGPT to extract positive quotes from there and then generate a shareable image from it. So in this case, Tilly's gone ahead and she's created one. And what it ends up doing is creating a cool image that you can share on your social media that has these quotes that have been pulled from the feedback, which, these were actually declines potentially. I don't know if they were. It's a mix of declines and approvals. I know she did get some approvals, but anyway, so I'm using ChatGPT to sort of automate this and run it automatically, if you will. So I'm going to just fuck her thing up here anyway and create a new one. So I hit do a new GPT. Oh, come on. ChatGPT sometimes messes up. There it is. So it's looking at all of her feedback, pulling out quotes, and then I used a little bit of magic code in the background to create an image for her that can, you can tweak it. You can hide the logo if you really don't want SubmitHub on there. But this is using an HTML canvas element, overlaying your artwork, and then inserting the quotes in there and uploading it to Amazon in the background so that you get it in the end.
And Tilly said in the chat that it's a 35% approval rate.
Oh, is that what he's getting? That's pretty good.
Yeah.
Oh, is that what Tilly's getting? Tilly got a 32%. Huh? Look at her go. So that's pretty good. I don't think he was referring to her song, but that's what she got.
Well,
right, the other thing.
There's I'm assuming it's her in the chat. And
is she there? Oh, was that Tilly who said that?
Yeah.
That is Tilly. Hi, Tilly. So the other cool thing that we launched recently, this is, by the way, you guys probably don't get to see this, but this is what a curator feed looks like. So when your songs come through, we as curators get to see the submissions here. Sorry to anyone who doesn't want their song to be seen. But then we get to make our decisions with a thumb up or a thumb down. Okay. All right. Any questions about ChatGPT?
No, that's cool. Yeah. I like that there's still, even if you get a rejection to a degree, you can still kind of use it to your advantage, so to speak, if there's positive wording,
Yeah, it's turning lemons into lemonade. That's what I kind of see from it. So again, this is trying to take that sentiment that, not everyone enjoys SubmitHub and actually giving something valuable, even though they get rejected, that they can walk away with. So that's been rolling for about a week and a half or 2 weeks. And then this marketplace has been rolling for about 3 weeks. So the marketplace is kind of where I've been putting all of my effort lately. The idea here is that it's a lot like Fiverr. I don't know if you guys are familiar with Fiverr, but Fiverr is a microservices platform. You hire people to complete tasks for you across all sorts of stuff. Writing copy is probably not so popular anymore because ChatGPT's taken it. But the idea here is that we want to have a marketplace on SubmitHub for musicians to do things that musicians need to do. So when you are releasing a song, you start out recording it, and then you got to mix, master, put your EPK together, get your press stuff, get your artwork, get your Spotify canvas, find your distributor, do all of it. Like, there's many different steps along the way, and promotion is where SubmitHub fits in, but we are already deeply entwined in this ecosystem. So I kind of want to offer these services to other artists on here who might need help with that. So what this marketplace is doing is offering these services, which you can you can see they're here. But our broader categories are audio engineering, graphic design, music reviews, and press and marketing. The one that we're really pushing right now and really doing most of our experimentation around is album and EP reviews. So SubmitHub is more single focused, and for many years people have been asking, how do I submit an album and EP? And this is kind of the solution to it. They end up being, you go through this list of curators who are willing to write album reviews, and their price is listed there. And then it goes through this process of you request a quote, they come back with a quote, you either approve it or decline it, and then you work on your project, and the deliverable is provided. And we come in and we facilitate that and make sure that everything runs smoothly. So it's a lot like another website called MusoSoup, at least on this side. So on MusoSoup, you submit your song to a pool, and then bloggers come and bid on it. And if you like their price, you can pay for coverage. I've always been kind of anti-MusoSoup's model because it does feel like payola. You don't get coverage unless you pay for it. And this is not too different. So maybe I'm like slowly coming off my cross that I was prepared to die on. The main difference here is that we do ask our bloggers to disclose that their content was discovered or provided or supported by SubmitHub, whatever the client and the specialist actually come up with language that they're comfortable with. But the bottom line is they need to disclose that it is sponsored content in some way. And then you get around the payola thing, because the definition of payola is paying for coverage without disclosing that payment was made. So as long as that disclosure is there, it moves from payola to a sponsored ad. And that's kind of the idea behind this section. But the album and the EP one is the one that we've tested the most here. But the audio engineering stuff is also kind of cool. And we're starting to see some requests coming through here. But the idea is that you go through, you can kind of get an idea of the type of music that these guys are making, what their process is like, and you can hire people to do, your master for that price, or you can even get a full mix for, this guy's doing full mixes for $10 or $15. It's crazy. And
so beyond just music reviews, or I guess basically like advertising of albums and stuff, there's also a marketplace for mixing, mastering, things like that, or that's the plan?
Exactly. Press and marketing. So you get your press kits, your ad setups. I know Instagram advertising is a pretty popular one for a lot of artists these days as a way to promote, but it's got a pretty high barrier to entry and can be a bit confusing. So you can hire people for that. Graphic design is another one. So if you need to hire people to do your artwork. Fun story, apparently Spotify has started rejecting AI artwork for albums as of today. At least that's what the discussion in the bloggers chat room was. So there's a bloggers chat room on SubmitHub, and they were busy going on about Deezer and Spotify have both started to crack down on AI artwork, and they're not allowing it. So you can come and hire someone to make real artwork for you. So these are people who will do album art. We haven't actually launched this part yet, but within the next couple of days we should. Another one is Spotify canvases, so hiring people to do your Spotify canvases for you. So you can preview the type of stuff that they make, and then if you're interested, you can request a quote from them.
That's really cool. It seems like a very nice gateway into the notion of, like you say, Fiverr, people doing commissioned work and building that community beyond that. If you are a producer, like making your first beats, and you have no idea how to slap together a piece of artwork or to make your stuff launchable on Spotify, that is a very good way of doing it, because that's where a lot of people who are starting out get a bit lost.
That's the thinking. So anyway, that's where I've been putting a lot of my effort and will for the next 6 months. So it's sort of a launch and iterate thing. I like to roll out half-baked projects and then see where they go. It's pretty cool to be the only developer on it, and then I don't have to ask anyone's permission or have anyone double check it. I can just be like. So today new feature, lyric support. You can actually upload your lyrics now when you submit your song. It's not a revolutionary thing, but I do actually try to automatically grab your lyrics from third-party platforms that you might have uploaded it to, so that it can pre-populate for you. And I bring up that example because I completely fucked it up and broke the upload process, and then went to go have dinner with my family. Wasn't paying attention. So I came back to a whole bunch of customer support tickets of people going, it's not working. And then also Tilly was kind enough to exactly paste the error for me so I could see exactly what it was. Anyway, launch and iterate. It's a very raw, like someone once said SubmitHub's kind of like the old school web in a way. It's this raw sort of made by people type of thing. It doesn't have that sort of hidden corporate stuff behind it. Like, what is Gmail? I don't fucking know. Anyway, so that's kind of the way we run things. That's the way I like to do it.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, we appreciate you giving us all these tips and what's next for SubmitHub. I just want to get into, we have a couple of Patreon questions we can just do quickly.
Bring it.
And I gave Jason these earlier because I wanted him to have a response for it and everything and know what our patrons were wondering. So the first one comes from our patron Thomas, and he says, I was wondering why SubmitHub have chosen for curators not to be able to share to smaller playlists under 100 followers and at the same time give a refund. I often discover tracks that I would like to share, but I'm not able to because some of my lists are too small. The only workaround is to decline or give a refund and then manually add the track.
Okay, so I mean, the reason you can't share to a playlist under 100 people is pretty self-explanatory. I mean, you're on here because you are a curator with some sort of traction and clout. So we don't want people sharing the small playlists. We did actually have this problem for a while, and we finally solved it with these shout-outs, and then we went through a lot of problem with shout-outs and people doing too many shout-outs. But what Thomas is pointing out here is a subtle difference. He's aware that he shouldn't be sharing or taking someone's money for a share to a playlist that is as big as your mom's playlist. But he wants to be able to do it using SubmitHub's technology and seamless integration. So what's cool is if you're a playlister on SubmitHub and you find a song you like, with the click of one button, you can add it to your playlist. You don't even have to open up Spotify, look up the song, drag it in. You can do it all from SubmitHub. And so I get that would be useful. The simplest answer is Thomas decided to bring it up in your forum instead of asking me. So I haven't actually thought about it too much. It could be done. I can do it. If you go into something like Audionaut on SubmitHub, which is where artists rate each other, you'll see that there is actually an add to Spotify button. So you can add anyone's Spotify song to your playlists the same way that a curator would. So I suppose I could put that button on where you're trying to basically share to a tiny playlist, but also refund. Thomas, message me and give me some more of the cases, I would say, and then I'll think
what's the best way to message you, Jason?
Well, if he's a curator on SubmitHub, then he can just ask in the bloggers chat room,
okay,
or email me at jason@submithub.com. So we have a really open channel for curators to make suggestions and complain. The same with artists. There's the artist chat room. There's the Audionaut chat room. Yeah, it's possible. One other reason is just no one's really asked for it, and I'm a little worried about sort of information overload and too many buttons and too many different things going on. But it's possible. It's possible. I can do it. I mean, it's definitely set up to work that way through Audionaut. And actually, a workaround, if you go to any artist's profile on SubmitHub, you'll also find that same add to Spotify button. So a pretty easy way to do this would be to, well, I guess what Thomas wants is he wants to refund and also not do a shout out, but share it to the playlist. It's possible. You can refund it by writing less than 10 words, and you can go to the artist profile and just hit that add to Spotify button.
Would the artist get notified that it was added?
Yeah, if you use that button anywhere on the website, so Audionaut or on the artist profile, whoever song you add gets notified that you have added them to a playlist. In this case, it wouldn't say, hey, Thomas from this curator profile has added it. It would just be like, Thomas has added you to his playlist. So it's a pretty broad generic one. It doesn't say he's a SubmitHub curator or anything like that. But if your song is going through Audionaut, for example, and people like it and they start adding it to their playlist, you'll get that same sort of notification to let you know that so-and-so has added you to their Hot or Not favorites or whatever. I think there's probably 100 or 200 of those types of shares per day through Hot or Not, which is that's kind of a cool collateral unexpected share that people get. So long-winded response, sorry, but yeah, it's possible.
That's all right. That's why we're here.
But I came up with there you go. That was my solution, Thomas. Just click on the artist name in your feed, their profile pops up, and then you'll see the add to Spotify button right next to the song.
Perfect. And Wayne in the chat actually says, I've had that happen in the past, was notified by chat. So yeah. Curtis, you've got a question from FCC, I believe, correct?
Yes. So FCC, a beautiful patron of ours, he says, it'll be interesting to know if the volume of tracks being put through SubmitHub has gone up in line with the amount of new tracks appearing on streaming. So are people struggling to get their music out there, and are blogs, playlists, etc., being swamped by submissions?
So the answer is no, it hasn't gone up. It doubled or tripled when COVID hit. I think what happened was that a lot of people who hadn't finished their music, had a lot of spare time on their hands, went home, didn't have to worry about their day job, and started to release all this music. So SubmitHub saw massive growth at the start of end of 2020 and the start of 2021. I mean, that's really when the global lockdowns were in full effect everywhere. And all the other platforms did, the distribution platforms did, Spotify did, everything. Since then, we haven't continued to grow. So we haven't doubled or tripled again. It's plateaued. It stayed pretty stable. Some of that, I think, is a lot of those artists who had their chance during pandemic, tried things out, didn't work, had to go back to their jobs, and it's sort of a return to the norm there. That question does get me wondering how much of that increase in volume is an increase in unique artists. How much of it is catalogs? I mean, like Spotify tells us that there's 100,000 new songs per day. But I don't know what the breakdown is in terms of how much of that is back catalog, how many, like, is it labels getting old stuff up and running in the digital age? Is it people releasing AI albums and just uploading 1,000 songs a day? Like, what is it? So I don't know. We haven't seen a major uptick. I think at this point there's about 3,000 to 5,000 songs per day uploaded to SubmitHub. So it's a chunk, right?
Yeah.
But there's 100,000 a day going to Spotify. And at the start of during the pandemic, they released a number of something like 60,000. So we haven't grown. I haven't seen a 50% increase in our numbers to correlate with that. So the question just kind of gets me wondering, it's entirely possible that, SubmitHub is just not providing a service that people find useful, and therefore we're not growing. We're trying to do that, but it doesn't work for everyone. But yeah, it makes me wonder if that 100,000 is genuinely an extra 40,000 songs over 2021, or if it's the same artist releasing a bunch more music. Like, there's a guy I like on SubmitHub, on Spotify, Sunday Morning Jazz. I was literally just looking for a playlist called Sunday Morning Jazz. That's what I typed in, and sure enough, the artist name was Sunday Morning Jazz, and all of his albums and songs are keyword targeted. It's all SEO, you can tell. But I don't mind the music. It's actually okay. It's pretty generic background jazz music. And the dude has pumped out like 30, 40, 50 albums in a year and a half. It might not be AI. He might just be like, they're super simple riffs and they're about 2 minutes each. So it's very reasonable that he's just pumping these out. But I think that's not a unique example. I think there are a lot of artists out there who are basically just flooding these services with a bunch of music. So yeah, the answer is no, we haven't grown. And I'm kind of skeptical about what's driving these big increases that these publicly listed companies that rely on big numbers disclose to us.
Interesting.
Okay.
That's my answer.
Yeah, well, that's everything we got from the patrons. That's a really good or interesting thought about, is it back catalog? Is it stuff like that? Yeah, because we just hear the big number, but we don't hear what kind of things it is. Just gets you thinking. Yeah.
I don't know. Yeah. Like, it's not necessarily more artists either. It's just more people getting online and uploading their stuff. How much of it is songs coming from India and China and them like tapping into that market, and not just for new artists, but also just making label connections and hookups with, okay, cool, we're now working with this distributor in Korea. So boom, all of the Korean songs are now available on Spotify. Does that count as, you know, maybe it was 1 million that got added from that catalog in a day, but then they annualize it over a month and they say, does that count towards the number? I don't know. Maybe someone knows. I don't know, but I would imagine that it does count. And so I think that the peak was during COVID in terms of artists online trying to do promotion and get their word out there and compete. So in some ways the competition is, well, from our side, it's the same. It hasn't grown much since COVID. And I see that as sort of putting my business hat on. I'm like, that's good. We've done well, because there's this decline in terms of interest and people actually doing it. There was this big uptick and it's been going down, but we've managed to stay flat. So I think we have done well in providing a useful product. But I'm careful not to get stuck in that trap where we're like, oh, we got to grow. We're shrinking, like panic. How do we extract profit? Let's charge more for our API. That was a Reddit joke, but we're happy where we are. And it's fine. And so we were exploring the other avenues like the marketplace and things where we can find value for artists. But at the end of the day, I'm not a publicly traded company and we're not trying to show constant growth numbers. And so, I'm skeptical a little bit about this. I would love to know from distributors, like, what is their growth like? How is Symphonic seeing this growth, or DistroKid? Are they seeing this big increase in releases, or I don't know. They're all private, so they don't publish that.
Yeah, definitely. Well, I mean, I think that's everything from us. Ian, like, do you have anything you want to ask Jason?
My questions have been answered. I wanted to know where it was going and what the newer developments are and why. But
why?
You know, Jason's answers are thorough.
Yeah, why?
Yeah, he's covered it.
Because I'd be bored otherwise.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot of common sense stuff that you're doing there.
Yeah, I do need to take a break though at some point. So that's coming up. I keep telling myself I'm going to take a real break. You guys watch.
Don't bring the laptop. Just leave it.
No, I have to bring the laptop. What if something breaks?
Well, then it's not a real break.
That's a break on a break.
Yeah. Well, Jason, we really appreciate you coming on and answering all the questions and giving us some
Thanks
tips.
for having me.
I just want to run the tips by the biggest tips you gave us were only submit to genre matches over 8 out of 10, or try to submit to genre matches over 8 out of 10. Check the approval ratings of curators. And I like how you said you kind of do it like stocks, where you have the safe bets, the higher approval ratings, and then you can go for those risk ones. And then always choose specific and honest feedback so that the curator has to try to give some, like, have you in their mind, correct?
Yeah.
The one thing I wanted to ask about was the engagement rating on that.
Yes.
Is that engagement with the playlist, or is that the curator's engagement? What's that actually telling me?
It's based on, it's where they're going to share you, and it's actually it's pretty advanced. It's dynamic based on the genres that you've chosen. So a lot of curators have multiple playlists. Not all of them are the same size or have the same number of listeners. And so that engagement score will update based on the genres that you have and where they'll typically share. And we were also looking at this when I was showing you the playlists that you can preview. Those get automatically sorted according to where they share those genres. So they might have 10 playlists, but I might only show you 2 of them because that's the only place they're sharing doom metal. There's no point in me showing all the other ones. And then their engagement rate will be based on that. But it's like trying to compare apples to oranges with that engagement rate. The origin of it was, how do you compare a YouTube channel to a blog to a Spotify on sort of a level playing field? And so that's the algorithm running behind it. But then it's also a relative metric. So when we were looking at those doom metal guys, it's looking at the 17 options that showed up and then rating their engagement against each other. So that 10 out of 10, if you were to compare it to an indie rock selection, which would have been probably 300 or 400 playlisters, that's a much bigger, broader genre, they might have come out at a 3 out of 10. Who knows? Okay.
Yeah.
In fact, yeah, I can't remember exactly what their engagement rate was, but yeah, the idea is that it's dynamic based on the genre. It's specific to where they are sharing, so it's referring to the engagement of the playlists or the blogs where they would share, and it's relative to the others that you're looking at. I don't know why Lars is still skeptical, dog.
It sounds like you've won him over a bit.
Yeah, you got him a little bit.
It's a slow
Count
process.
that as a win. That's
a little bit. Hey,
today.
here's my tip for Lars. Skip the submissions to curators. Go check out Audionaut. So submithub.com/Audionaut, or it's linked on the homepage and the sidebar. It's all over the website. But the idea with Audionaut is that you can listen to songs by other artists and rate their songs, and in return they'll rate your songs back. And so it's that's a softer, easier, no stakes, no money involved. And actually what will happen is that we pay you premium credits for leaving feedback for other artists. So if you leave feedback, then you can earn premium credits and you never actually have to spend a cent. So yeah, do that first. If you're skeptical, this is like someone who says that they're they don't want to take mushrooms because they're nervous, and I'll be like, well, then you shouldn't take mushrooms because you're nervous. So in this case, Lars, if you're skeptical, then just don't, go take something softer, like Audionaut or a joint.
Yeah, I've yet to try that Audionaut, but I might check it out. FCC also says that he might try this out again tomorrow. Not the actual SubmitHub, not the. I mean, it's all
not mushrooms either.
Not the maybe not the mushrooms. I think this
SubmitHub
I think he posted this before we brought up mushrooms, but I might try this again tomorrow with a few new tracks. And Lars also says I may give that a shot. Sounds like less risk. Yeah,
it's way less risk, and it's cool because you can also expose yourself to music by other artists. So you can learn and you can make connections. So if you find something you like, you can offer to chat with them, and then there've been a lot of collaborations and remixes and partnerships and stuff that have come out of Audionaut. So
it's got to be said at the same time. I think in terms of accessibility, in terms of so take premium. I've not done Audionaut. What I tend to do is I tend to get premium credits, and then I tend to focus on one or two strong songs, the singles from an album or something like that, and then put them through. And in terms of just, even if they do get rejected, even if they don't get put through, the notion of the accessibility of being able to access higher end or higher footage, footfall, if that's the right word, curators for the price that you're paying. It is generally speaking a smaller investment to pay.
It's relative, right?
It's very relative.
For those who remember what it was like to hire a publicist for $2,000 or $3,000 a track, this is a drop in the puddle. But for an 18-year-old without any money, this is a ripoff. So
Tilly has a tip as well.
Yeah, I was gonna bring it up. Tilly says also a little tip. You know how you like when somebody says something great about your music, your particular song? Be like that to curators, personal, and tell why your song fits them very politely.
So I think you have an opportunity to do this with a quick pitch when you are submitting your song. So when you're going through your submissions, we ask you, is there any, what's your pitch line to the curators that you're sending to? And you can customize these pitches per curator, or you can just do one overall. So as you're going through, if you were to customize them per curator, it can actually help a little bit with getting those approvals to, like, hey, Jason, really, dig your playlist over at Indie Shuffle. I know you like so-and-so, and I think my song sounds a lot like it, so I'm hoping you'll feature this. So there is level of personalization and big upping them in a way, inflating their ego will help you possibly.
Jason, there is a text amount, right? Like a set in that quick
200
characters or something, right? Yeah. Okay.
It used to be 50.
There you go.
It was a quick pitch.
There you go. But I mean, is it okay? So you say stroking the ego in that sense, but I mean, again, coming back to the notion of investing in your own submissions and being particular with your own investments, being quote unquote clever at what you're doing. Like, if you want to be part of a place, you want to be part of a community, surely, then you, like you say, you go and listen, you make sure that you're a good fit, you spend your money wisely in that regard. And it doesn't take long to flick through.
And if you're not submitting to a playlist that you like for some reason, why not?
Yeah, that's a good question.
Oh.
Yeah, it's not even about striking. It's about trying to build that connection and show that there is something that you guys have in common, and
Find the right
that's why
hope.
you think of it.
And also, I suppose
Yeah.
that you're listening to what they do, not just throwing them something, right? Like to the curator, like, hey, I've listened to your playlist, you know.
Broadcasters and record labels get this a lot, you know, thirsty musicians saying, you know, here's my stuff's really good. Play it, sign me. Instead of, I really like your label, it's just brilliant. I went to that gig.
It can backfire though. Don't be too, like, if you're too generic. I use the example, hey, Jason, really love your playlist at Indie Shuffle. For me, that's like an instant, well, you are full of shit because we're not a playlist, we're a blog.
Yeah.
So it can backfire when it comes off as sort of disingenuous. But you can really tell as a curator, and that quick pitch gets pretty prominent real estate when you're getting a submission. It comes right underneath the song title, and it's in its own box. Here's the quick pitch. So it's something that you can leverage to get better results, and I do see artists waste it quite often. Tilly wrote a song. I don't know, has she published it? Tilly wrote a blog post yesterday or 2 days ago about quick pitches. Did she publish it? No, it's still a draft. Coming soon, Tilly's going to publish an article about quick pitches, which will be available in the recent updates section of SubmitHub.
Perfect. All right, we'll keep an eye on it.
9:15 p.m.
That's it. Yeah, we've got some gear and stuff to cover, but Jason, if you need to go, no problem at all. We really appreciate you coming on though, and answering the questions and
Thanks,
showing
guys.
us what's next.
Good to meet you as well.
Yeah, it's been lovely.
Thank you. Until the next time. In 6 months, I'll let you know what else is new.
Yeah, have a good vacation when you take it.
Yeah,
it's coming next week. Starts next week. All right,
there you go.
Peace.
All right, later.
Cheers, Jason.
All right, so Curtis, what have we got in the news?
Well, we shall go straight in. We've got a PSA with the Oberheim desktop. Let's go with that, seeing as that's what is currently up on my Windows space as we talk about it now. So I'll just bring this up as we can see. You found this.
So it's more of a quick PSA. We've already covered the OB-X8. It's $5,000. Sounds incredible. Analog synth. I mean, you hope it would sound incredible at $5,000. Just a slightly more economically friendly version, a desktop version, has been, I think, announced. I don't know if it's available yet at $3,500. It's pretty much the same thing, identical, just that no keyboard, obviously, and a bit reduced in price. So I don't want to say a more realistic, but slightly more realistic.
Slightly more realistic.
Good idea as well. I mean, how many massive analog synths do you want in your studio?
Yeah,
I
true.
mean, all of them if they're you, no?
I like the desktop stuff. I'd like one decent one for keyboard, and that's it. Everything else can be small.
I like to think that the listeners, again, to what Jason was saying about the 18-year-olds who are on SubmitHub and submitting to, we go from that to $3,500 Oberheim pieces of hardware.
Well, you know, we love to dream. Bases. It's always good to dream, right? You know,
covering all bases. Looks a bit lush though.
I mean, it sounds great. We covered this a couple episodes back, so if you want to hear what it sounds like and all that, you can check out. We have a playlist of everything. But it's just a PSA because a lot of people, when we covered it, it sounded great and we're interested, but slightly better price.
I was wondering if you could sync two of them together to have a 24 voice Oberheim or something, but it's just a silly question, really.
That'd be cool. Yeah, I don't know.
I mean, I wouldn't mind it. I'd love to be one of these days, be in one of these positions, one of these days where you could go for one of those. You know, like it's becoming more. I mean, there's the Apple, what's it in the new Apple Vision Pro, $3,500 or something like that. But I mean, with the walnut end caps, so to speak, it's worth every buck.
It's got to be walnut, mate.
It's got to be walnut.
Of course.
What's the point?
The amount of walnut I've had to put on the ends of synths that didn't have walnut. My MS-20 to start with.
There you go.
Coming through with it in its own right. Be curious to know if anyone in the chat has any notion of getting the Oberheim desktop. That'd be really fun. Really fun to see. Speaking of which, though, people in the chat, a lot of what we just had with Jason has been down to our patrons. And thank you ever so much for your continued support, as we do. Obviously, Thomas and FCC, among others, made some questions for Jason. If you want to get in ahead of the game and everything like that, consider becoming a patron. You can. It starts at $2. It's really good fun.
Yeah, you can head to the link in the description or patreon.com/audionautic. We have additional podcasts. We have a Twitter group that's for patrons, a Discord channel that's for patrons, and that's where we ask them if they had any questions for Jason. And yeah, their support helps us to do more of this. So if you like what you see and want to help support, you can head to that Patreon. It helps a ton, and we appreciate everyone who heads over there and also just hangs out with us here, because just hanging out's more than enough.
Very much so. We love it. Thank you. What is going over in the world of WhatsApp? I'm showing this banner because I like this one. What's up with WhatsApp, someone?
That one's you, so you answer that one. I don't know.
Me?
Yeah, that one's you.
Well,
I think you said it's something to do with like Twitter Space. It's akin to that. What is it? Twitter Spaces or something like that?
Yes. So Twitter came up with Spaces the other week, where Fox used quite a bit, as much as I understand it. But they're like little intranets coming through, which is quite interesting in its own regard. So you can have these little channels which you can say blast updates to any followers or anything like that, which is kind of nice in its own way. It's a limited test going in Colombia and Singapore of all places, but they're going to roll it out as it goes through. And it just, again, in the name of following up-to-date information, personalized, where I suppose in a similar regard to Instagram updates and stuff like that, but a little bit more personal, because I believe with DistroKid you get an American phone number, for example. I believe that's the case, or you have the option to create such an existence in that own regard. These channels are now becoming part of it. So in the same way that you've got WeChat and you've got Zalo and you've got Viber and all that stuff, it's becoming more of a social media, or a little intranet in its own way, which is a really interesting thing to kind of watch in that regard.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, any way that lets you connect with fans, friends, followers, new avenues of it, it's always welcome. And competition, that's always nice.
Oh, completely. I think, again, if we look at trajectories of where like Spotify are going, they're going towards a social media, and they will continue to do so. Everything is based on personalization. Everything is based on how you directly are reaching out to your fans in a unique way. It's a wonderful tool in order to make that happen.
Yeah. Like anything you want to add?
I find myself wondering about, social media. It's one of those things. I guess it can be good for convenience, but you'll end up with social media built into absolutely everything, and then people will just turn off it, perhaps. But I know it's been helpful for some people I know where they've been doing something. It's an opportunity to just sit down and have a chat with people. So yeah, and I do think competition is a good thing. It keeps everyone thinking, everyone trying to do a good job. But yeah, I don't know. I look at some of the younger people today, and I think maybe their appetite for social media is a bit more focused on certain platforms and a bit less embracing of ones they don't use. But maybe that's just me or how it seems. Time will tell, as always.
That's very ominous. That's very ominous, but I like it. Not necessarily a bad thing.
It's dark.
Very ominous. It's getting late, isn't it? It's getting late. What's going on in the world of Reason? Who brought this to the docket?
I did. It's another PSA, and I know there's fellow Reason users like FCC. I used to use Reason. I still sort of do because of old songs and things like that I'm trying to bring. But so there's Reason 12. That's the newest one. I'm still on 11, and they are ending the old authorization system as they roll over to a new one. They're saying that, let me find my notes, that on September 25th, 2023, we are discontinuing the old authorization system, which is used by Reason 6 through 11. You will still be able to authorize those older Reason versions by logging in online, but they're also offering a 60% off upgrade to Reason 12. And if you want the subscription version, Reason Plus. They did mention, though, that with that online authorization as OS's update, that may be affected because they won't be updating it and things like that. So just something to keep in mind if you're using an older version. I don't know how long. Oh, yeah. The 60% discount is only till the end of this month. So if you are thinking of sticking with Reason and you're using an older version, I would consider getting that update while it's at a discounted price. Yeah.
I'm not sure how I'm not sure if, I should say, it's probably a better word. A subscription service for DAW sits well with me. I don't know.
I know. What I do appreciate is the fact that you can buy it outright still. Of course, until the next update, then you have to buy, but you get a discounted upgrade path and all that stuff. The subscription service does come with like everything, which is cool, like a bunch of sound libraries, patches, presets, things like that. I mean, Photoshop and all that is a subscription only service now, right? You can't buy that outright.
Yeah.
So I don't like it. I don't like subscription services. Remember Waves, when they announced that, they had to roll it back almost right away. Reason never went all subscription, and I appreciate that. I like that they had both things. And Abby says, not a fan of retiring one's tools. Yeah.
Renting.
Yeah.
Renting.
Oh, renting one's tools. Sorry, read that wrong.
Absolutely
renting one's tools.
right.
I agree. I agree completely. I know. On the other hand, though, I kind of get if you need it for just a month or something for some reason, like if I'm not using Reason anymore, but need to get all these demos ported over to Logic or something, I could use 1 month. And I mean, that's not an ideal situation, and that's not a typical situation. It just pops in my head. And a bunch of people in the chat are with me on the Adobe. Lars says, damn you, Adobe. Ed Survey Channel says Adobe completely screws us all, for example. Yeah, I don't like a lot of these companies moving to subscription models. I understand that it's a consistent amount of profit, whatever you want to call it, that they're getting each month. But I feel like it always has to get on the consumer, you know?
It's interesting. So I have the Adobe Suite. And I use the Adobe Suite, and I'm okay paying for the Adobe Suite. At the same, and I'm not sure where this hypocrisy comes from, but bear with me. If Ableton was somewhat, if that was subscription based, I have a problem with it. I don't if it's Adobe. And
do you feel that's use bias? Like you use Ableton so much? I know you use Photoshop a lot too in Adobe, but like, is there something to do with that you're always in Ableton, whereas Adobe is more of a secondary thing? Like, oh yeah, I need to do this and that.
Maybe I was thinking more along the lines of the fact that I know when Adobe updates and when it comes through, you get those updates. Then again, you get those updates in Ableton anyway. And I bought Ableton outright, so that model can be there. I wonder if it's I don't know.
Well, let me ask you this, though, because if Ableton, what number is Ableton at? 13? 11?
Yeah.
11? So when 12. Ableton 12 comes out, do you have to buy that?
A discount, I think, if you're upgrading.
Right. So just like Reason, where Reason 12 comes out, you buy it at a discount. When Adobe rolls out new things, do they roll out new versions? I don't really use Adobe.
They do, yeah. So they roll it out once a year. So it gets a big update.
And that's covered in the subscription, right? Just like with Reason Plus, any new Reason, you get the new version.
Maybe it's a bit different in that regard.
I have opinions.
Yeah, I don't like the subscription service. I'm just playing devil's advocate because I like to bother Curtis. What's your opinion, Ian? Like,
well, sod it. You don't have to make sense. It's like Malt Whitman said. We're large. We contain multitudes. We can contradict ourselves. It's fine. I think personally, I'm a consumer and I'm willful and I want what I want. And sod you if it doesn't make sense. I don't want it. I don't want to pay for a door every month. Sorry. That's just the way it is.
Yeah.
And these things happen. It doesn't have to make sense.
But you want to pay for a plugin suite every month, right?
No. No.
But, that Waves, man. That was...
I appreciate Abby's point of renting one's tools, and there's a point there. And I think that's right. I do think generally I fall in that category. But, you know, essentially it just comes down to people's appetites and whether or not they want to, and basically how many other subscriptions you have in your life, because everyone seems to think that moving to a subscription model is the way to go, because they get their monthly recurring revenue and you just get no disposable income because everything adds up. You know, so I'd like to be able to make the decision, and yeah, I don't think we need to make sense. We need to keep them guessing. Got to keep them on their toes so that they give us what we want.
FCC, if you're willing to share, I'd be curious to hear your take on the Reason subscription, and or are you going to upgrade to 12? Because I don't think you're on 12, right? I think we talked about this before, and you're on 11 or something, unless that's changed a bit in the chat. Lars says he uses Adobe, but only because he gets the sweet student discount. Yeah, that is a big discount for sure. Survey Channel says there's alternative DAWs you could use, whereas Adobe has the market cornered for the most part. There's really no suitable options for much of the suite for power users. Affinity is one to check out, and he says he switched to DaVinci for video. Yeah, I mean, it may be slightly apples to oranges, but I'm more just talking the idea of the path you go with, like upgrading, where if you have the subscription, you get that new, like Reason 12, Reason 13, you would get that in the subscription. Adobe, you would get if they roll out a thing. I'm not saying it's right. I was just asking Curtis, just for my own edification, really. Like, does Adobe have these big update rollouts where it's like a whole new version? And maybe not. I don't know. I was curious. And FCC says I have 12. Oh, and you use Reason Plus, so you have the monthly subscription. Interesting.
Yeah.
Do you like it, or would you rather? I mean, you can buy Reason outright. So it's just, maybe it's worth the subscription for you. Interesting.
I mean, again, it's maybe I'm just suspicious of this everything going subscription based. And you know, you watch your salary come in at the beginning of the month, and then all your stuff goes out, and before you know it, you got fuck all. So maybe it's something to do with that. But I mean, I don't know. Maybe I'm just being pedantic. I don't know. Now, in my experience with Adobe, I don't use like everything. I'm just using it as an example, right? But I don't. Yeah, but we do some Photoshop, and we do After Effects, and we do Premiere Pro here on Audionaut, and I do it for my own stuff as well. And I'm fairly happy not owning that, but maybe that's just because I don't feel like I am that person. Whereas when it comes to Ableton and the creative side of it, what I make is mine, and it is an expression of me. You know,
interesting.
What I mean?
That's a very interesting analysis. Yeah, that's deep. That's deep. And in the chat, FCC says, I kind of pay for it through my work. Don't tell. I wouldn't say that in a chat publicly. But that's all right. But more to the point, he says, I just want the easy option. He says, it's okay, the Reason Plus. You get all the new racks and packs, which is okay. Not sure I'd do it again. Interesting. Okay. Shall we move on over to the marketing minute before we go?
Yeah. Hang on. There's a few bits. Just you want to put Survey Channels one up, and then we'll head across.
Yes. It came up after I had already started talking. He says, true, but how much more are you paying for that? Hot damn, 600 plus a year, and they deliberately release new versions to keep you paying. Buy it outright, and maybe in 5 years you upgrade. Yeah, the upgrade path for Reason is, I think, it's not that expensive. I think it's per year like 60 or 80 or something. So, yeah.
There you go.
It's still, I mean, I'm not the biggest fan of Logic. Has been Logic 10 for however many years, and you get all these really cool updates. They keep updating it, and it's all for that $200 price. And that's partly why I've switched over to more Logic, and I just like its workflow. But yeah, I get you, Survey Channel. I guess their idea to compensate was the subscription that you then do, but I think it's like 20 a month. So yeah.
Well, moving from something that has created a lot of debate and lots of idea, maybe something for the marketing minute that is less controversial and more just kind of dope.
I thought this was good news. This was really good news. It's a change to the YouTube partnership program. If you could scroll down a little on that, Curtis. Yeah. So
this one here.
Yeah, right there. Stop right there. That's the one. So YouTube has introduced a new lower tier entry point for the partnership program. And the partnership program, for anybody that isn't familiar with YouTube as a creator or anything, that's where you get ad revenue from video ads. You get a ton of stuff. You get memberships, super chats, super thanks, all these kinds of monetary things. You can create a shop on your videos. So there's all these different things you sell, merch store, things like that. That was always an entry point, was 1,000 subscribers and 4,000 watch hours, or 12 million shorts in the last 90 days. They've now made this new entry point that's 500 subscribers, 3 public uploads in the last 90 days, 3,000 watch hours. I was really hoping it was going to get halved like the subscribers, but it's, I guess, quartered. And then 3 million instead of 12 million shorts. You don't have to have 3,000 watch time and 3 million shorts. It's one or, like either or. Now, the drawback to this is it's not everything in the partnership program. You don't get ad revenue and you don't get a few other things. What you do get are super chats, super thanks, the memberships, and the store. So it is a pretty decent start. I wish it would have been like the ad revenue starts, but the other stuff doesn't. I think that would have been more feasible, but I don't know. I'd be curious to hear your guys' take. And everybody in the chat, I know Lars already put up his opinion. He says, "Oh, YouTube getting slightly better for creators." Yeah,
I feel that's got a tinge of sarcasm.
I think there's more than a tinge. I think there's more than a tinge, but it is getting better. And I mean, the difference of YouTube, TikTok, and Instagram is YouTube, at least, there is a pretty low-ish entry point for monetization, especially now, versus Instagram. I think for stores and stuff, you have to have 10,000 followers, something like that. I could be wrong, but last time I looked, it was a pretty big number.
It feels like a pretty decent dilution, if that makes sense, if that's the right phrase. The idea you don't get everything, but it's a little bit easier to level up. Almost like again, if we talk about the gamification of kind of profession and the gamification of kind of like influencer work, for a better shout, or anything, or creator is probably a better word for that. That's a nice kind of like halfway house to kind of get there, because your first 100 subscribers is the most difficult one to achieve and ascertain.
It's all difficult, man.
Yeah, but it does get relatively easy. I suppose it does get relatively easy as you carry on going. You learn, you evolve, and you grow, and more people come through. But it's at the really basics. It's like that kind of exponential curve. At the very bottom, it's the hardest one to get through. So that's a nice way to kind of get something through.
Yeah. The one thing I'll say, a slight retort to that is, man, it's not just one curve. It's always just ebbs and flows. Like it gets. You get these moments where you're really high and just subscribers going up and up, and then it just stops, or views stop, or this and that. I mean, it's with anything, but that's just the way it goes. And you change something, you learn something, and never get complacent, I guess. But you are right that I really appreciate the fact that this is a lower threshold to get into this, and a somewhat reasonable entry point for some form of monetization. What were you going to say, Jan Lake?
For pipe techno, it's a way to get.
Yeah. I suppose so. Everybody's jazzed up for not Survey Channel. Sorry, Curtis's pipe techno live.
It might, to be fair, it might as well be Survey Channel's live stream at this stage. I mean, it is brought to you by Survey Channel. I'm the mere vessel.
You're a vessel of it. Yeah.
That's a good change, though, isn't it? It is positive. I think, like you, I was hoping to see the required watch hours and stuff come down a little bit further than that.
The watch hour is the hardest part.
Yeah.
The watch hours are the hardest part for sure.
Unless you post hypnotism videos.
Yeah. Unless people click off in the first 5 or 10 seconds. It depends, I guess.
Yeah.
You just need a Hypnotoad video from Futurama for like 4,000 hours. Just a 4,000 hour video, and you're golden.
Yeah, you got it with one person.
Yeah. Well, shall we hold off on the round robin? We went a little extra, and I know Curtis has his live stream coming up, so
yeah, we'll save it.
I think this one's a good one. It's gonna be a talker. I think
rush the round robin.
Yeah,
it's a bit. I can't rush it round robin. I think it's Steve. Give me a sec. Sorry, I haven't fed him before the show.
On the phone, having an argument.
Without trying, okay, I'll tell you what. If we're going to stop the show here, because we have gone on for an hour and a half, and thank you ever so much for everyone who stayed on for the full 95 minutes that we've been here. It's lovely to have you along for the ride. That's awesome. Thank you ever so much. I just seen Lars's comment. The notion. Okay, we're looking at drums. right, next week in our round robin. We're having a look at production of drums. Let us know in the comments, or let us know in the Spotify and Apple Music, those who are listening back on or the recording or whatnot or wherever, or even in the Discord. You know where we are by now. Come find us. What I'm saying is, what do you believe when it comes to the production of drums? What is your top tip for drums, production of drums? What is your top tip? We'll be discussing it next week in our own kind of fashion, and I won't reveal it now, but if you are producing drums and you're tackling drums, what is the one thing that you consistently do? What has elevated your drum production game? Please let us know. It'd be really good to kind of get into this next week.
Yeah, let us know in the Discord. The link is in the description. And patrons, of course, let us know in the Twitter chat or the Discord channel. Ian, like, what do you got going on this week? Anything new musically?
This week, I'm finishing off a radio set, and I'm continuing with a new EP with some new equipment that I didn't tell Sunwarper about, but I did tell Curtis.
Oh, well, now you got to tell me in the green room after. And Curtis, what do you got going on this week?
What I've got going this week, I think more mixing, I think more production. I've really been getting into going back from my previous live stream project files, taking the loops and then turning it into something. And we're talking proper, like no kind of studio space or anything like that. Pair of headphones just plugged into the laptop, just on the bus, on the tram, in the booth, and just kind of making it happen. And I'm plugging that and going with that. I want to do more, and yeah, that's what I'm doing. Yeah, that's what I'm going to be doing. What about you, Sunwarper?
Nice. I have one not very important bit of stuff, and you'll know why I say it's not very important when I say the second one, but I'm going to start with the not as important one. So I'm going live tomorrow, and I've got a poll for what I should be making on my live stream, and it's been tied at 50-50 every time. It's a split vote, 14 votes so far. So I need the chat's help if they're willing to hop over to my YouTube after this, just to go to the community tab. Either going through GarageBand loops I made on my vacation and flipping it on the SP404, or I got some really cool samples from Curtis, some really weird drones, some drums, and then I got some Juno 60 samples from Thomas, one of our patrons. So the other option is flipping some of those sounds to make a song on the SP, no DAW involved, just using chromatic mode. So if anybody wants to help out, because it's been tied at 50-50, and I don't want to combine both of those. That's too much. So you can head over to Sunwarper on YouTube if you want to cast a vote, and it'll be 11 a.m. tomorrow. Now, the bigger part of news, and the last one's not as important, and I say that, I finally got to announce that my wife and I are expecting our first child. Yeah, so due in September. So Sunwarper is getting a Sunwarper Junior. It's a boy. We found out a couple of months ago, so very exciting times.
That bloody well is. Yeah. Bloody well is. I'm looking forward to the point of getting you on the live streams, but you've got
I know,
in one of those things, like with the ear defenders on, and it's just like
yeah, I think I'll start him young with Koala.
Yes.
You know,
that's why you need that little sampler.
I know, Chompy, but it's $500.
Yeah, small investment for indoctrination.
I don't know. If anybody wants to donate to the Chompy Child Fund, let me know. Yeah, and everybody in the chat, I really appreciate all the warm sentiment. David says congrats. Abby says woo. Lars says congrats. FCC, congrats. Survey channel, congrats. Yeah, I appreciate it. I know I had told some of the patrons, and of course my partners here knew, but we wanted to announce it later on. But yeah, September, so it'll be interesting. But so for a couple weeks there, I will be gone, and Curtis is going to be hitting up some people for guest appearances there, so you can get excited for that.
Yeah, got some ideas, and come say hi. Eon Lake and I have to have a veritable void to fill, so we're going to have a look on how to get that done. Basically.
What everyone will want to know is how's this going to affect the Death Warper project?
Yeah.
I mean, now I'll have some screams to sample. I could drop them in pitch, and you know, yeah. So get ready, some real crazy screams incoming.
It's gonna be fun. It's gonna be fun. So yeah, thank you ever so much for everyone joining us in. Hope you enjoyed our little SubmitHub special. If there's any more specials that you'd like, let us know. because we'd love to go on the hunt for these kind of things. This one kind of popped out organically, and we're happy to find more. So let us know what you would like to know more of, and we'll hunt it down and try and get them on the show.
Yeah, and a massive thanks to Jason for coming on, and thanks to all of our patrons who gave us some really good questions. It was a lot of fun to do, and just real quick in the chat, we got David saying "Baby Doom" and Survey Channel's "Your Own Screams." No doubt, it might be a mix of both. I mean, we'll see.
Harmonies.
Yeah, harmonies. Scream harmonies. We're good. We'll get
there. Well, we'll be back this time next week. And yeah, if you want to see some techno pipes, 45 minutes, and I'll be on my own channel. Little time to break down here. Give us a bit of a debrief. Feed the cats. That's the main thing, I believe. And yeah, boot this up, and yeah, come over to my channel, and we're going to see what can happen with some Julian pipes and some techno at 125 BPM. It's going to be weird, but fun.
Yeah, for sure. All right. Well, until next time. Oh, I just also want to say, if you enjoyed the video, leave a like, share it. It helps a ton getting us out there, new eyes and ears. And you can always tune in on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. We keep seeing growth over there, and it helps a ton if you leave a rating on either Spotify or on Apple and answer one of the questions that we put up there. We've also got some winners for the Noise app that we will be putting on our Discord. So tune into that if you submitted a question.
Very much. So, Ian Lake, any final words, sir?
If you have been listening, thank you.
That's a very Radio 4 voice.
Yeah. If you have been listening, thank you. Yes. Well, I think with that, we should just end it. Thanks so much for watching, and we'll see you next week.
Ciao.